Hey, what's up, everyone? So I'm doing something a little bit different today and something kind of scary. I don't see a lot of people doing this stuff, but I've got a ton of time on my hands. I basically went through a bunch of hard drives, and I found a lot of my old, pretty much my first works that I ever did with photography. Not saying I've progressed much since then, but I think it's interesting with knowing nothing, thinking about topics and everything, and that's the purpose of learning, going to class and etc. is knowing nothing or not a lot about it, figuring out what it means. And photography is tough because, by the word in general, there's light in it. Photography is all about light, all different various forms of light, and how to work with it, how to set a tone with it, how to set a mood, etc. And learning what that is. And the interesting thing I see, and then obviously the process of like landscapes versus textures, etc., like those exercises, how it forms you kind of to today. So I'm going to show you back from college when I actually first started photography. I didn't really have a good base of that in general at all until college back in 2008. And then kind of where I'm at today, and just for, fun, candid street stuff, it's what I enjoy. I'll give you a little bit of a backstory and maybe we can connect in that way. So a quick backstory, and don't mind this angle. I'm doing something with the computer here. That's why it's like this. I'm going to have pictures here. I absolutely was not into photography much before college back in 2008 when I was a freshman, and I just didn't really have the respect for it. It was kind of a forced, it wasn't elective, whatever it was. It was a forced class that I had to take to get my TV and film bachelor's degree. So in 2008, I took a class, and I really only made it a couple weeks because I despised the teacher. He didn't really teach. He put down work a lot, and he really wasn't good for intro to photography. So he got me out of it, and then I delayed taking that class until 2011 to where I was almost kind of done. So 2011, 2012, and that's where I eventually got my first camera, and then I had a great teacher. His name was Jack Lurch, and really opened my eyes to a lot of things. He was very much more into like landscapes and stuff like that, but he was a great teacher. He knew how to present things, and he got me excited about it. So I went from like hating it, not shooting at all, to enjoying it, understanding it, and then to where I'm today. And I'd like to think I'm a little better since then, but I found a bunch of my old work from my first photography class, and I just want to kind of show you the progression and my mindset from someone new who didn't know a damn thing. No one really in my family had a background of it. My aunt did a little bit, but I was never really taught anything. And this was learning from one intro to photography class, sticking around to a professor, becoming a second shooter and assistant with him, and then progressing until I am now and what I do. But here's kind of a look at my college stuff, and we'll break it down a little bit. It's kind of fun. There's nothing else going on right now. So I do have a bunch of earlier work. One of the things I want to start off with is this kind of midterm thing. I only took a couple of these, and these aren't good. These are not good. That's why it's kind of embarrassing to show, but I do think it's important to show what it is. And I picked a couple from that assignment that I wanted to share, and some of them are really bad. The first one was a choice. Like, you were kind of given do something of a teacher in class, kind of like an environmental, show something of Earth, someone in motion, etc. So once again, this was me and my D3000, with a kit lens for the most part. And here we go. So one of the first ones I want to show is just the flag on a gray background. It was choice. I liked it for some reason. Hey, colors, it popped. Hey, it's something that stuck out. More of a gray background. I think that's fine for a first shot. But then I got too into editing, and you'll see me, and I made it absolutely horrifically blue. In my opinion, it's not good. But I really, really, really like this photo starting out. But I will say, even though it's not good now, knowing what it is now, it definitely popped. I mean, I even went out and printed out like an 8x10 of this back then. But for a first photo and really getting into it for the first time, it's not horrible. So if that's what I was doing back then, that was fine. This other one was called Class or Environmental. And this was my teacher. His name was Chuck. And it doesn't really show environmental. It does show a teacher or someone older in a workplace, but I could have showed more of the environment. It was a bit tight. But this was, once again, shooting in lower light, a little bit of flash, on camera flash, and I did what I had to do, but it's not really a good environmental I should have shown more. He had a bit more cameras in the background. That would have been a little bit more interesting. Something else was Earth. And I think this is perfect for back then and for one of my first times. Because what I like about this is I did include some depth of field. And I think that's very important. Not necessarily knowing why I did it, I guess, is the bad thing, but it had color. It popped. I mean, it's a little too vibrant and I mess with it too much, but I think that's a very good choice for an Earth per se. I was proud of this one, and once again, you learn off of that. But I mean, even the bokeh looks kind of pretty sick in it too, so that's pretty cool. So that's another one. This one is bad. This one was my motion, and it was the show motion. I didn't understand shutter speeds that much, and this was kind of the point. What lens was that? 55 to 200 lens at 1.2. So I'm not 100% sure, but obviously this photo is entirely blurry. The mindset, I think, is what sticks out here. Is I wanted to capture someone in motion, and I obviously missed focus. I don't even think it's a focus at all, nowhere. But it just missed in total, and the color's bad and everything. But at least I had a mindset of, hey, I want someone swinging. I wanted to show a trail or something. It just didn't stick out and really go from there. So that was a lot of that. But then I really want to show you more or less what progressed after that, as I wanted to get along, learning a little bit more about framing, texture, depth, landscapes, etc., and just to kind of show you a little bit from there. One of the assignments I had was to show my school, which I went to DeSales University in Allentown, Pennsylvania, or in Center Valley, Pennsylvania. And it was to really show a good outside. And once again, I didn't know much about sky, ND filters, and everything. But the thing that I liked about something like this back then is what I could justify is it had a nice line with the bridge. It framed the school in there, and I had a little bit of the foreground in there on the sides to give it a little bit of something, and it had people. Once again, not amazing, but back then getting an outside shot of school, it'd be great if there were more kids or students passing by, but I think that's not too bad. The other thing was depth. I never worked a lot with depth, but this was me really kind of understanding it more, and I think I had a 51.8, that little D lens at the time. But this was depth. This was obviously like a memorial chart or etc. Inside our gym, and obviously focused on one area and blew the rest out. But once again, anything amazing? No. Maybe if this was for a memorial or something showing a particular name or family, that'd be fine. But once again, it's all about the mindset, and I don't mind that at all. Then there was motion. I think I captured it here. Once again, not a great photo. But mindset, I started to learn shutter speeds. You see, there's blur. You could see the motion in it. Be it just a fountain, who cares about the sky at that point? Getting it down, learning, obviously achieve that there in this one. And with work, the teacher's out of focus, but you could tell it's a teacher in a classroom. I have a foreground of someone there, a student, teacher teaching, some kind of action. If it was in focus, I think it'd be a better shot. And obviously the framing's a bit off on the right and the head, but learning more, it's not a horrible thing. Let's go into landscapes. So for landscapes, I want to do this one. This is what we had to do, a converging line thing. And I loved this photo for the longest time. This was one of my favorite photos. I love even though it's a little off center, I love the lines going down the middle. I loved all the trees. Obviously now, I wish there were people there. It was framed a little bit better. But once again, you kind of learn about that as you go on. But this was one of my favorite photos throughout college for some reason, and that's that. This one was kind of cool. It's obviously way too blown out, and I didn't really know how to recover it, but I had a 51.8 lens that obviously didn't autofocus on the D3000 or 3100 because the D3000 series didn't have an internal focusing motor. So I didn't know what it was doing, but I loved the tone and the haziness that came out of this one. And I tried to put foreground in with the snow there, but that was my mindset in that. But really just thinking and learning how the stuff is coming is crazy. The other big thing was lighting. And one of the things I first started to learn about was light painting, and I was obsessed with it. And that's why I like now doing long exposure photography. It's the same concept. Drag the shutter, bulb mode, do whatever you need, get the motion, get the ghostly figures, and you can really tell an interesting time. So for this one, I went crazy. I had these fingertip LED things, and I would mess with them and go from there. So mind you, They're all waist shots, but they were cool. They were something fun. That's what got me into it. And then I had it where light was coming out of a bottle. Once again, very amateurish, but fine. You're learning about light. You're learning how to drag the shutter and everything. But then as you get into light, one of my earlier first candid was a silhouette shot. I was told just to go out and get a candid shot, and not necessarily something you could identically recognize someone. And I thought, hey, silhouette, bright background, dark foreground, boom. And there you go. Once again, could be better, but it went above and beyond from what I should have known at that point in time, in my opinion. It's just something cool. All of these very amateurish, obviously, but that's the point. You go from learning nothing to learning the concepts to working with them, struggling through them, doing your stupid selective coloring with them, and going from there into more modern stuff. And I'm just going to pull up and run down the list. This one seems basic, but I like it because it's pretty abstract, and it kind of looks like it's an alien on a date at a restaurant or something. And then this one, I like looking up at buildings from New York City. This is one of my favorite shots I kind of almost ever took. This was from Chicago, and it was from a homeless guy on the street. Obviously, there was a lot going on in Chicago, crime rates and everything like that. And one of the things that I saw was a reflection in the window. Got down, got that shot. I mean, just a simple framing shot going on there. If I want to talk about motion, that's an example of motion with it being more in focus. More abstract, fun stuff, light head. I mean, self-explainable there. More portrait stuff, so just nothing crazy. This was at a Sony press event. But once again, portraits, knowing the focus, knowing the framing, putting something in the foreground, make it fun, make it interesting. Yeah, environmental, I think it says for itself. It literally also says what's going on. There's work going on. You go from there. I like the street shot. I like the color. I like the blue that the lady's wearing at the bus stop in Chicago, and it's going on. It's just something that sticks out to me. It's instead of all the blacks and whites and golds and everything, the blue just pops. And that's some of the stuff you can look out for is color. To me, for this one, I think it kind of speaks for itself to an extent. And for this one, I feel like it's kind of isolation, kind of what we're going for now. This is in New York City. This is right across from Grand Central Station. Usually busy steps. Now, I didn't take this at this moment of time. I took this about a year ago, almost 2 years ago. But I mean, it kind of just shows what's going on right now. There's isolation. The guy's all alone. There's nothing going on in what's usually a busy part of the city. A lot of people usually sit on those steps. And for some reason, at that given time, on a dreary day, there was no one. This one, the gradient, once again, going into the sky, going from very, very dark to light, almost intentionally. And then I like this one for motion. You want to talk about creative motion. This was also at a Sony press event, but it was showing motion in it, and it's kind of abstract because they're not in focus. But then I have one where they're more in focus, better framing there. But that's just to show anyone who is younger or going through any of this, it's really just looking back, and you don't have to know everything starting out. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about this is knowing that motion I could capture just by knowing the exact settings of what lens and what to use is better than the light I was doing with my thumb things and the friend at the time in college swinging on a swing set, not knowing how to focus. It's just really cool to see the progression. And I just want to know, have you guys and girls have seen that as well? Let me know your comments below. What was some of your first photos, some of your first cameras, and some of your first experience with photography? Be something interesting to discuss in the comments. I know a lot of us have a lot of time on our hands, but yeah, a bit of a different video. Haven't really seen anyone kind of do anything like this before. I know people are going to say a lot of stuff, but I don't care. It's where you come from. It's where you're at now. And by all means, I am no Craig Whitehead or anything as of right now, but I enjoy what I do when I do it, and I'm grateful for learning who I did from Jack Lurch, one of my professors from college, to now, who got me very interested, and it's obviously still sticking around. But that's it. Tell me something about your first pieces of work. It's cool to see how everyone progresses.